everybody. Welcome to our March 13th Sitecore Strategy webinar. We have 3 great speakers lined up. And before we get into them and introduce them, I'm going to just go over some quick things. We do have more webinars planned for May and June, and we are doing an APJ friendly time on June 18th. We do have a number of speakers lined up. However, if we get even just 2 more, we can do, we can add another session to this as well in anywhere from the April to May or even early June timeframe. So send in those requests. You can send them right at smac@sitecore.com. These recordings do get posted on YouTube where you can share them out. So it does give you that broader view. And of course, you can put them on your applications for MVP. All right, and getting into the good stuff, we have 3 great speakers today. We're going to start with Petar, and he's going to be talking to us about scaling content operations with Sitecore Content Hub, followed by Megan, and she's going to be talking to us about, is SEO as we know it extinct or just mutating exponentially? And last but certainly not least, we have Chris Nash, and he's going to be talking to us about how CMS-aware analytics provide better content insights. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Petar, to get started.
Thank you, Krista. Welcome everyone. I'm going to start sharing my just a few slides that I prepared for you all today. I do have less than 20 minutes if you want to make sure there's time for questions. So I think you should be all able to see my screen. All right, let's talk about scaling content operations, and I really just wanted to kind of talk about this trend that I've seen emerging, and especially in the last year or so. You know, a lot of organizations are undergoing modernization of their CMS, and while it's the first step, I think Content Hub plays a critical role in solving deeper content challenges. Before I dive in, real quick, for those who don't know me, I'm Petar Mitev, founder of Mitev Consulting. As an independent Sitecore Content Hub expert and DAM and Content Ops consultant, I work with organizations to streamline content workflows, improve their marketing content operations. I'm also Sitecore Strategy MVP for the first time this year, since I've been with Sitecore for over 8 years. Prior to going as an independent consultant, I couldn't even apply. So just happy to be here with you today. If you have any questions that you want to follow up on, or you want to get more details about this presentation, do connect with me on LinkedIn, and happy to chat. So 100%, this was the revenue growth of XM Cloud in 2024, so Sitecore's fastest growing product ever. And many organizations that I worked with as well are making the shift to modern SaaS-based CMS solutions, moving to composable DXP, driven by the need for agility and enterprise scalability. But CMS modernization, while crucial, I think it's only the beginning of laying the foundations of digital transformation. So organizations quickly discover deeper challenges that a CMS alone can't solve. And while we can talk a lot about digital experience management, personalization, I'm sure Megan and Chris are going to talk a lot about that as well, about CMS and analytics and SEO. As in the industry shifts to composability and so on, I will be focusing in the content problem specifically. So the content problem. Content today is created everywhere, across CMS, CRM, PLM, AI agents and tools, creative platforms, and it's done by multiple teams: marketing, product, sales enablement, external agencies, you name it, all typically working in silos with disconnected workflows. And so this results in so-called content chaos, which almost always emerges through duplicated work, inefficiencies in searching for content, finding content, duplication, higher cost, total cost of ownership across your stack, and ultimately fragmented content operations, which is a bigger strategic problem, I believe. And while CMS is important, it's just one part of your ecosystem right there. It doesn't solve collaboration, governance, workflows, and other kind of omni-channel holistic content strategies for omni-channel delivery. So again, behind the scenes, marketing content operations struggle with disconnected teams, governance efficiencies, disconnected silos, fragmented workflows, all ultimately preventing effective omni-channel delivery and slowing time to market. And so if we look at where kind of Sitecore Content Hub comes in, it provides a solution for organizations looking to manage, optimize, and distribute their digital assets primarily, but it also streamlines the overall kind of enterprise content creation process, enhancing collaboration across teams and ensuring a cohesive digital experience. So just wanted to kind of take a moment to look at like kind of, Content Hub was created with a holistic vision. As the name says it, Sitecore Content Hub, it's meant to unify marketing content and streamline enterprise-wide collaboration. So rather than just being a DAM or CMS extension, as I see a lot with my clients, it's bought as typically an add-on to their XM Cloud transformation program. I do think that it's often overlooked the overall wider strategic kind of positioning for Content Hub, allowing to centralize structured content management. It acts as a connective tissue between back office systems, as we see on the left side of the diagram here, on the visual. Back office systems such as ERP, PIM, PLM. It depends on your industry vertical, really. But everyone has back office systems that contain raw content. So it's ultimately the idea is to aggregate all that content, centralize it, manage it, put orchestration workflows and processes in place, and to then distribute it over to your customer touch points with that can be systems departments as well, ultimately transforming content from a tactical necessity into a strategic and valuable asset. So when we look at, and actually this is one that I think it's really important for organizations to realize when they're going onto that journey. Scaling content operations is a gradual evolution. It's not an instant transformation where, I see a lot of organizations try to do a lot at once, but typically, a lot of organizations will start from the ad hoc operations state, having where content is fragmented across multiple siloed repositories, multiple systems, typically all disconnected and managed with manual workflows. So I mean, everyone is probably familiar with the content operations system, which is called email, Word, and Excel, right? So that leads to the obvious inefficiencies, duplication of efforts, and a lot of other inefficiencies. So the first step towards maturity is centralization. It's using a DAM with structured metadata and taxonomy to create consistency. So as an organization progresses and move up to the curve, they move into the structured stage where content governance begins to take shape, while workflows are still maybe departmental. So not much cross-departmental, cross-team collaboration is happening yet. As you move on to the next stage, and the greatest stage is where cross-team collaboration starts to take place. So marketing, digital experience, sales, IT, product teams start working within shared workflows, leveraging further automation and structured content for omnichannel use, but as well as really using the technology to put a better process in place and then start working with that process in their day-to-day use. So for better collaboration on content. At the I don't think it's the last final stage. There's a lot that can be said about digital maturity, kind of the maturity curve. At the optimized stage, as I like to present it more simple, content operations are typically enterprise-wide, include AI-driven automation, workflow automation, personalization, modular content reuse. You start enabling efficient omnichannel content delivery at scale. And this is, I think, so when we look at each stage increases efficiency, reuse, and velocity, time to market, but also requires a process maturity. So you can't get all this value attained just by implementing the technology. You need to put governance. You need to put operating models and implement change management. So as the organization matures, the users using the solution, they need to also start to get used to, okay, now we're working in a system that is actually governed, that there is operating models and there's change management in place, which typically you start with none, right? And Sitecore Content Hub is ultimately that technology enabler that helps organizations progress through that journey efficiently. And so, but to also fully leverage Sitecore Content Hub, I think that uh, organizations must look beyond just marketing and DAM, right? Looking beyond just one departmental use case. I see the journey typically starts with the digital experience or content, kind of the web team wants to centralize their repository, wants to consolidate their media assets and improve the media library experiences they were used to from the old XP days. But we need to look beyond that use case. We need to find out which different teams across the organization can benefit from structured content operations. And that's, I think, the key of kind of that enterprise-wide adoption as well, is to look beyond, look beyond and look in the organization. So here's a few examples that I think are quite relevant, maybe in not in all industries, but in quite a few. Marketing teams, obviously the obvious one, right? Streamlining campaign execution, maintaining brand consistency across their efforts. Also sales teams, ensuring access to the latest approved collateral, reducing outdated materials for enablement. Product teams in general, improving consistency in product content, centralizing content across product features and documentation. E-commerce teams, they can benefit from optimizing product content for their digital channels and automating their marketing workflows, so be able to leverage single source of truth for content updates across their e-commerce presence. And corporate communications, so HR, human resources can efficiently manage structured press releases, announcements, onboarding materials for their employees, training resources, but also staying on brand, because human resources also does a lot of talent acquisition and talent branding, right? Corporate branding, which is essentially, well, you need to stay on brand. Essentially means we need to ensure that we're using the same our corporate brand assets and so on. So this cross-functional alignment, I think, accelerates content maturity and eliminates redundancies, reinforcing Content Hub as an enterprise-wide asset. So I think I have a few minutes left to talk about what I believe is the most important part of my presentation, which I think is crucial. It's a crucial one to align with your stakeholders when they begin their journey on adopting content operations with Content Hub. Scaling Content Hub adoption is not an overnight transformation. It doesn't happen over a couple of months. And then it stops. It requires a phased approach. It's a long-term process, ensuring so this roadmap, I think it provides a structured way to implement Content Hub, but as well as ensuring that adoption long-term success. So starting with the foundational steps and gradually expanding with full enterprise adoption. I mean, honestly, I could do a couple of more slides around this, because there's many other phases that we can talk about beyond the foundational and kind of beyond scaling and automating omnichannel optimization and so on. But I think it's a great starting blueprint here. So in phase one, let's go through the key phases, starting through phase one, discovery and MVP definition. I think that's really, really important to start by aligning with our business stakeholders to identify priorities and pain points. The goal here is to define a minimal viable product and maybe even do a proof of value with a pilot. So what problems are we going to solve first, and how do we measure success for this whole initiative to ensure that there's ultimately ROI from the solution. Common priorities could include reducing content silos, improving governance, increasing content reuse, searchability, findability of our assets and content. In phase 2, we focus on building a scalable content model. So we, I like to lay the foundations of the structure before we continue with the further adoption. So before we even consider migrating any content into a single repository, we need structure. We need to define metadata, taxonomies, governance to ensure consistency. So we also validate the content model. I think it's very important that once we put the structure in place, we need to validate this model with real use cases before rolling it out at scale across the organization. That's where I think a proof of value, a pilot, can be a very interesting sort of subphase in this overall roadmap. In phase 3, centralizing and migrating content. So here's where and doing a pilot, right? So now that we have a structured model, we can consolidate content into a single source of truth. And that can be, digital assets of all types or a subset of asset types. If you have other or if you have a brand asset management solution that, you would like to put in place side by side with your enterprise DAM, you need to define which asset types are in scope for which. And so, so once migration, so then you define a phased migration, prioritizing first high impact content types to maximize, to maximize adoption and minimize disruption for your teams. Phase 4, typically that's when we start really, enabling cross-team collaboration workflows, integration into the larger ecosystem. Content Hub is more than a repository. It's an operational platform. So at this stage, we've established that there's a structure, that established the centralized repository. So we now connect workflows across teams. We start onboarding and rolling out to other departments than marketing or the initial one that is using this solution. So sales, e-commerce, we talked about a couple of other examples. Really depends on your organization. And we also integrate Content Hub with CMS, CRM, and other backend systems to actually enable an end-to-end content operation solution, where you can, from creation to distribution to publishing, you're also enabling that whole life cycle. And finally, phase 5. Well, again, I said this is not actually the full. Typically organizations undergo multiple phases. So in kind of the later phases, you would start automating, you would start further scaling operations and optimizing your content operations. So once workflows are in place, introduce automation. Things that have been done manually in the solution, try to automate things, that just follow a repetitive process that can be automated. That could be through AI-powered tagging, workflow automation through some business logic, or omni-channel distribution, and modularizing further, kind of moving into a more content modularization for distribution across multiple channels. This phase focuses on scalability and long-term efficiency. So I think by following this roadmap, organizations can see at the beginning quick wins early while setting up a foundation for enterprise-wide transformation. And I think, key to success is starting small, providing value, and scaling strategically. And I think I'm at the 20-minute mark. I might not have any room for questions, but perhaps at the end of the.
Yeah, you did great. Good timing, and I liked that last slide a lot. I think that's great, the maturity process. Next up, we have Megan. And again, if anyone has questions for any of our speakers today, please use them in the Q&A. You can upvote comments, questions, etc. there. And over to you, Megan.
Awesome. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks for letting me talk your ear off here for a few minutes. My name is Megan Jensen. You can call me Megan or MJ. My pronouns are she, her, and I work for Proficient out of the Minneapolis office. I'm a 4-time psych strategy MVP, and I've been in marketing for like 20 years, 21 years this month, I think. And for the last year, I've been working in sales, but it's really hard to get the strategist out of the girl. So this is still the stuff I love very, very much. SEO has been kind of an area of interest and expertise for me for a very long time. And I know for a lot of folks on this call, like things are getting really chaotic. And I call myself the queen of metaphors. Everything's a metaphor when you were an English major. And this just, I couldn't stick to one. I started out thinking, oh, let's do like a Jurassic Park kind of theme to this thing. And then it just got chaotic. So we're just rolling with it. So you get a metaphor, you get a metaphor, everybody gets a metaphor today. Because this is just like what SEO makes me feel like these days. And it's really becoming the wild, wild west. Back in the day, I could pretty confidently tell my clients that like, if you follow these rules of SEO, if you do your H tags and your meta descriptions this way, you're going to benefit from great organic traffic that you don't have to pay for. And we'd walk off and we'd measure and everything would be great. And like, all the rules have completely gone out the window, and it really is the wild, wild west these days. And that means different things for different people, and good content is all about accommodating your audience. So if we have any boomers on the call, probably think of Gunsmoke. Gen X, I think of the good old Will Smith movie from the 90s. If you are a millennial or zennial, you probably think of Beyonce. You get the good version of all this. But if you work in SEO and people start talking about the wild, wild west, this is probably what you feel like every day. If you are responsible for performance and metrics and things, and you are getting heat for, you know, just what your dashboards are doing, it's kind of a weird time to be in this industry. And when I put together the little description of this talk and like what I wanted to talk about, and then I started doing the research, I started realizing that I really bit off more than I could chew in 15 minutes in true Aries fashion. So I'm really trying to focus. That said, I'm going to be doing a lot more research on this and publishing some blog posts about, you know, the TikTok algorithm and a lot of other things. But today I'm really going to focus on kind of AI and Chat GPT and how that could affect your just organic traffic. Because in the end, it isn't really about that Google page rank. It's about people getting to your website and doing business with you. So right now we have a lot of just like people or platforms fighting for kind of dominance with SEO. You've got Chat GPT, you've got Grok on Twitter. I'll always call it Twitter. We've got DeepSeek, we've got Google with AI overviews, and they're all kind of fighting for our attention and our eyeballs and our engagement. Today, I'm going to focus on ChatGPT. So it doesn't mean that Google is dead. It's just a really chaotic referee right now. And if you have watched your kind of GA4, your Google Analytics, and your organic traffic, some of the patterns that we see are kind of unexplainable, and it's really hard to figure out what exactly is the algorithm, what exactly are the rules, how can we affect organic traffic and just get people to your website. And there's a lot of, you know, guys on the street corner with a megaphone going, oh, ChatGPT, ChatGPT. And yes, that's a big deal, but Google search still handles 373 times more searches than ChatGPT. And this is research from Rand Fishkin, who I trust more than my mother, so I believe this must be true. But Google's also making it harder to drive traffic to your website. And I'll be real honest, I don't know why. I don't know why they're making these changes and putting so much on the search engine result page with rich snippets and the AI overview that clicks to your website are going down. And it doesn't matter what you do, everybody is experiencing the same thing. In 2020, this should be 2024, 60% of Google searches ended without a click to a website. It's those 0-click search results. That was 3 trillion searches in 2024. So if they're getting information like on Google itself and not going to your website, I don't know what the like business driving factor is for that. I have to believe that Google eventually will lose ad revenue. You know, why are we paying for Google ads and pay-per-click ads when it isn't even sending traffic to our website? So if somebody can, you know, read the mind of the nice folks at Google and tell us why they're doing this, that would be great. Because if Google lives off revenue from advertising and that sort of thing, I don't know what the end game is here, but it's really making all of our lives a lot more complicated. So Miley and ChatGPT came in like a wrecking ball a couple years ago and just kind of set everything on fire, and we're all scrambling to keep up, stay ahead, not let this affect our, you know, our actual business outcomes. So ChatGPT is really highly used, especially by younger folks, especially by men, to like answer questions and things, but it could still be driving traffic to your website. And you can measure that. There's a little link on the bottom. It's fairly easy, it seems, to get that set up in your GA4 to measure that traffic. But watch that and see what content you're putting out and see what drives traffic to your website. It's still early days, so as soon as I say this, it'll probably be inaccurate by tomorrow. But if they're coming to your website, I want you to get credit for it, even if they're not coming from Google. So make sure you're measuring every possible traffic source to your website. So using ChatGPT for search, there's kind of like, there's a little switch on the bottom, and I put a screenshot here. It says search. 46% of users have that little search button on, 54% have it off, so it's roughly half or half. But what does that mean? When you have that search button on, ChatGPT goes out into the internet and finds information, resources, yes, even websites and links to websites that are a little bit more up to date and a little bit more dynamic. So when you have the search on, ChatGPT is going out to find you the information. When you have that search button off, it kind of just makes up the answer, gives you the answer based on whatever is in their head. So depending on what you're looking for, what your users are looking for, that's a pretty big switch to turn. For the search on kind of industries like universities, medical publications, scientific publications, they're seeing a lot more traffic with the search algorithm on. So that gives you an indication of like what people are looking for when they're using ChatGPT. And so I thought this was kind of funny. Searching for something about ChatGPT on Google, and I got the answer with an AI overview. So it's really important to just put yourselves in the shoes of the people who are looking for information. And if you have that information, how do you get them to your front door? That's what this is all about. And so it's really important to kind of think about search as it's, you know, going out and looking for information, but it's really important to pay attention to the prompts people are using as well. Are they looking up, you know, Sitecore consultancy in Minneapolis? Are they looking for the best Sitecore consultancy for Content Hub, that sort of thing? Pay attention to whatever information you can find about trending prompts. Sometimes it's the length of the prompt. They're very short. Like the average ChatGPT prompt is like 4 words. That's crazy. So keep an eye on that, and whatever information or trends or statistics or research you can find around prompts, consider that with your content strategy, just as you do the keyword research that we've done for 10, 15, 20 years. And think about that when you are creating content. What are people looking for, not only on Google, but ChatGPT, and then you have the whole universe of the TikTok algorithm and the Instagram algorithm. And it's really overwhelming to try and optimize for everything, but you have to pay attention if nothing else. And ChatGPT isn't going away, so let's exploit it. It's just a robot. Let's use it for whatever we can use it for. So there's a few different things you can use it for. So for SEO, like you can actually use ChatGPT to help you figure out things with a website. I caution you, especially if you work for consultancy, follow the rules legal has given you on what you can search for in ChatGPT when it's regards to a client or something specific like that. Because if you feed it to ChatGPT, you can't get it back out. It's now in there, and they're a large learning model, and you have to be really careful about privacy and that sort of thing. But it can be really useful for kind of helping you do the meticulous grunt work of SEO stuff that we, sometimes spend a lot of time breaking our brains on. And there's a great article here in Search Engine Land on that. So if ChatGPT is now really popular as a way to get information, how do you make sure that your information is in those answers? And more specifically, your company, your brand, how do you end up in those responses? Let's ask ChatGPT. How can marketers create content that shows up in ChatGPT answers? Create high quality, authoritative content. Make sure it's current, make sure it's fresh, all that kind of good stuff. Optimize for search engines for both SEO and AI SEO. So keyword optimization. I love schema markups more than anything in the world. Very rarely do companies want to invest in it. I really do think it's worth it. That's how you end up on that SERP, with your rich snippets. It's the temperature that you bake the apple pie at. It's the miles per gallon of the Chevy you just bought. People get their answers there very often, so you might as well be there sending them to your website when you give them the answer to your question. And then format content for AI consumption. So very clear headers, be very mindful, very demure of those H1s and H2s. After H3, I don't care what you do with them, but make sure one H1 per page, make sure H2s are used sparingly and importantly, and make sure you're paying attention to the actual words in those H tags. Very often, we see development teams use H tags as kind of like the format within components to kind of structure the styling of text. Don't do that, man. Like, make it so that you can control where your H1 is and where your H2s are, because it's more about the words within those tags than what they look like, the size and the font and that kind of thing. Publish content on high visibility platforms. So make sure it's not just on your website, but get it out there. Get some leverage out of that content. Publish it in different places. Go where your users are and contribute to like Medium, LinkedIn articles, blogs, that sort of thing. Don't just keep it to your website, put it everywhere so that you're getting those external backlinks into your website. And then keep content fresh and updated. So LLMs, who wants to read, the McCall's catalog or McCall's, oh gosh, I'm really dating myself. What's a more current magazine? I can't even think. So clearly, don't treat your website like McCall's from 1983 that you found in the orthodontist waiting room. Treat it as something new, exciting. You always have something new to talk about because that's the content that's going to get prioritized in those LLMs. And the thing I love most as a former English major is the one thing you can do to drive traffic, to increase your performance, to just do better overall is really good content. Find out what your audience is looking for information on, and if it's information you can provide, make sure that's the content that you are producing. Produce it by humans, hire writers. Please do not export all of your content strategy and content production work to the robots, because more and more, and I'm even finding this with visual AI type stuff, organic human created content and images and a copy stands out and it feels better, it feels different. And if your brand, if your organization really wants to lean into authenticity, keep hiring writers, keep hiring designers, make sure that it's being created by humanity for humanity. Let the robots do the parts of our jobs that we hate, all the meticulous, yucky, stuff that you spend too much time on and you kind of hate. Let's train our robots to do that part so we can do the fun, creative, strategic thing that speaks to other humans. And so the kind of good news, if you look back at that list of, I think, 5 or 6 things, you're probably already doing all of these things. So don't get distracted. It's really easy to be like, oh, well, do we need to, Do we need to have AI write our blogs for us because they'll have better performance? Don't get distracted. Keep doing all the good stuff you're already doing. Write good content written by humans, structured, follow all those rules. But at this point, I don't think you need to completely upend the stuff you're doing. You just need to be realistic about the outcomes that you get from the work that you do. So I preach this all the time. Do more of what matters. Measure what you do. If it works, do more of that. If it doesn't work, throw it away and start fresh with something else. But the things that you can really focus on, I'm a big believer in research. So that may be having conversations with your customers and clients. It should be conversations with people who have chosen not to do business with you. Why is that? Is it misinformation that you can rectify? Are they not getting the right information? Is your content not useful or helpful? That's really important too. But constantly be doing research with conversations and, keep doing that keyword research. Keep looking at what the algorithms updates are, but research to listen and do something with that information. Create really great content, whether it's videos or photos or infographics or text or articles, blogs, long form content. Keep doing that. Content matters. And I really love that of all the research that I've done for this over the last couple weeks. When you have a pinball game, I told you we were going to have a lot of metaphors. The ball kind of bounces around, bump, 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 and ends in the bottom. This is almost always content. The thing in the end that really drives traffic and engagement and conversions is really good content. And keep it fresh. A lot of companies are like, oh, we just have a brochureware website. It's fine. We have our About Us page and we update it, once a year. And maybe we look at our homepage every 6 months. Don't do that. Your website and your content, wherever it is, not only on your website, but everywhere, needs to be fresh and relevant and new. Not only do your users like that better, but all the robots like it better. They like a nice salad. They don't want a can of peas out of the pantry. They want something fresh and juicy and crispy and nice. And so give them what they need to eat so they will drive customers to your website. Follow the rules of SEO. Like fundamentally, that really hasn't changed so much. You still want your H1s, your alt tags, your meta descriptions, title tags, all that good stuff. Make sure you're following all the rules because that's the least you can do. After that, you can get fancy and do all the things. But if you're not structuring your website to be optimized for Google and everything else, it's kind of a wasted effort. So make sure everything is structured well in your website and keep playing the rules as we've played them and as they get updated. Don't ignore social media. I interact with brands 90% of the time on social media, 10% on their website. So make sure that Krista, that might get off the I told her, I said cut me off.
1 minute.
1 minute. Don't ignore social. Invest in good PR. Go out and get your content on different platforms, on different websites. Get it out there. Go where your audience is. That's kind of part of that too. What are they reading? What are they watching? Go there and tell your story. Have a healthy relationships on analytics. Yes, they matter. We need to pay attention to them, but be nice to your SEO team because right now it's chaos and we don't always know what's going to work. So watch your analytics. Do not live and die by your analytics. More than anything, pay attention to your website, to your users, and what's new in the world of SEO. Take a screenshot of this. I'll wait. Okay, follow all these websites and people. Really good stuff out here. And then, hey, take a little shot of that QR code and let's connect on LinkedIn. I'm a multi-areas with a lot of opinions and sometimes I'm funny. So connect with me on LinkedIn. Quick shout out to Tiffany Laster. I think she's on this call. She's my colleague at Proficient. She's 1,000 times smarter than I am. So follow her too. And she writes really great blog posts and things. So kind of between the two of us, you'll get your noggin full of good stuff. Okay, that's all I have.
Thanks, Megan. Chris, we're going to dive right into you since she kind of left off with analytics. But Megan and team, if you wouldn't mind putting your emails in that Q&A so people can reach out, that'd be great. All right, Chris, off to you.
So I'm sharing my screen and I'm talking, so I assume you can hear me. If I can just go
Yes,
into presentation mode.
and
Great.
you are good.
So really excellent, both Peter and Megan. I, like Megan, I'm also an English major once upon a time who discovered technology along the way. And in my background, I have a long career working with, let's say, digital marketing, a little bit of entrepreneurship. We're really interested in working with data and communications. I worked at Sitecore for 8 years. While I worked at Sitecore, I had the opportunity to co-author a book called Connect. It's been almost 10 years since publishing that book. Time flies. But I had the opportunity to work at Sitecore, and while I worked at Sitecore, I had the opportunity to collaborate with some colleagues, some technical colleagues, got really a good understanding of analytics and data. And one of the people I collaborated with, I ended up starting the company with that I work for, the co-founder of Relevant Edge. So we kind of come at BI analytics from a content perspective. And that's really what brings me here. And that's really why I chose the title or the concept of, what I call CMS aware analytics. So what I want to do is walk through it. I don't have that many slides. I'm probably going to be a bit short, but let's see. And then if we have any questions for any of us, it would be great. But so I start here. Google Analytics, I use Google Analytics. I think it's great at doing a lot of things. I think that it has its strengths and weaknesses, but it's the predominant analytics tool out there in the world. But if you think about it, Google Analytics doesn't really know much about the content on the web pages for which it is providing insights. So Google Analytics knows about page titles, page paths, stuff I've listed here, events, but it doesn't know about the context of the data with regard to what the user is sort of doing or engaging with. So if you agree with this, or if you can kind of see the point with this, you're very welcome to give me a couple of reacts using the little react button on in Teams. So this is a little bit of the driver behind this idea of CMS analytics. So as having an understanding of content in CMS, having an understanding of analytics, what I've learned, just come to do is work more with this concept of CMS aware analytics. And what is CMS aware analytics? Think about it. There's structured data everywhere in the digital journey. I think Megan did a great, sort of run through of why it makes sense to structure information when you want to get more value out of like the digital properties that you work with, and be able to measure them. So, but CMS, it contains a lot of structured data, right? You have a lot of companies choose Sitecore because it's for multi-site, multi-brand, multi-language. That's why you would use a CMS like Sitecore. So there are sites, there's content hierarchy. Obviously, pages, as we know, are consist of a number of components that have different designs. Components have names and they have characteristics. Pages are based on templates. Components contain data sources, and surprise, surprise, whatever. There's actual content in CMS. There's in terms of as we know, headlines, text, calls to action, link text, etc. And of course, there's images. There's also capabilities, for example, in Sitecore XM Cloud and old school Sitecore before that, this taxonomy capability. So you can create a design taxonomies and assign them to pages and to other things like components. And it's very flexible and easy to work with. I mean, it's kind of like the profiling that we know from Sitecore XP. And of course, there are fields. There are also CMS has users. CMS has publishing information. So there's a lot of things that go on in CMS. It's also actually structured data. So imagine if we're able to take the structured data from CMS, and we're also able to take the structured data from call it page composition. So in headless, the headless front end is describing the data that it wants to render in HTML. Contains a lot of the headless front end data contains a lot of rich information about context. There are component names described in the page structure. Obviously, details like hrefs and link details. and things, with regard to the components themselves. I mean, if there's taxonomy present, or also, with regard to the composition of the page, there is the the ordering of components on the page. Where do the different components appear, as well as things like navigational elements, footer elements, etc. So there's actually description of that composition that's contained in the rendered pages. And then there's also behavioral session data. So those, everyone's familiar with Google Analytics. So there's a tracker that tracks user behavior. In Sitecore CDP, there's also a tracker that tracks user behavior. Sitecore XP, there's also a tracker that tracks user behavior. Every session has a session ID. Every user has a user ID. There are when the user is browsing through the website, they're looking at pages, they're viewing components, they're clicking, they're scrolling, they're spending time on certain parts of the page, they're spending time on, looking at components. And there's also forms, form fields, they're abandoning forms, submitting forms, viewing forms in the behavioral data that's collected, UTM tags, URLs, etc., referring domains. So there are these sort of rich data sets that, if you're able to read these different data sets and join them, for example, based on the session ID to as much as possible, now you can really supercharge the analytics that you're getting, beyond what I call traditional analytics. A lot more about the context of what the user is doing while they're actually triggering these kind of like the session data, and looking at components, etc. So I'm going to focus more on the concept. I'll go a little bit into the technology part of it, but just first, like, imagine this, being able to access these data sets and join them, and then visualize the result in a BI tool, for example, Power BI. Then you have the opportunity to provide, very contextual types of insights that where you can understand, not just that the user is looking at a page, maybe clicked a certain link, but where on the page are they looking? What's the name of the component, etc. So I have 3 examples where I'm going to walk through this. So the first one is on the left-hand side of the screen here. You see there's a screenshot of a page. There are, as you could imagine, components. There's a hero. There's something with 3 columns. And then I'm highlighting this one with a, let's call it an insurance website, first-time home buyer, for insurance, and etc. There's calls to action, request a quote, the kind of things you see on an insurance website. So imagine if you're able to, in your analytics, see what was the name of the components on this page, how many impressions are there of each one, so how far did the user scroll, and then the component actually created an impression, and be able to look at insights like how many impressions are there and how many clicks are there that take place within the component. So now we're into something that you could call sort of component-based analytics. And this is a really good example of what I mean about CMS aware or CMS integrated analytics in general. So notice, for example, on my page, there's at the bottom, you can't see it, but there's a call to action to request a quote. If the user doesn't scroll down there, then that component is not visible. So it's super relevant to understand, what components were actually visible. Google Analytics tells you there was a page view, but did the person look at, where on the page did they look at? What did they look at? So that's also the second example here, looking at the number of times, the named components appear, the duration, the amount of seconds that the different components are rendered on the page. So visibility, duration, and up here we have impressions and clicks. Simple example, but there are lots of possibilities that we can take this. We can look at components by conversions, for example, components by segments, components by taxonomy. Lots of potential in working with this component-based insights. My second example is one where it's a customer, an organization we work with, Kerzner International, Atlantis, which is based in Dubai. They have a Sitecore XP implementation, multi-site, multi-brand. They make they have resorts that are located in different parts of the world. Users come into the website, they search for an accommodation, they select a specific room and a rate, they fill in their information, they pay, and their booking is completed. The way that Kerzner basically promotes these through campaigns is that every accommodation, everything you can book has its own unique URL, for SEO purposes and for campaign purposes. So there's hundreds of products that and hundreds of funnels. So how to be able to provide hundreds of booking flows. So how to provide funnels for each of these flows in a flexible way. So what we do is we take in the booking flow, the different steps in the booking flow, the 5 different steps. Each step has its own component, or sorry, each step has its own template in Sitecore. So we can look at templates, rendered by template ID, by the number of times it's rendered, by a user, and now we have unique impressions. So we don't need to go to the trouble of tagging up all of these flows using traditional events like analytics events. We can look at we can filter our results by the number of times a page with a specific template is rendered. And now we're able to look at the number of unique users who perform the different steps in the funnel. And we can simply change the URL, or we can change something around the booking link, or change some other attributes to look at any funnel out of hundreds of funnels across, 8 brands and 30 different properties. So this was another sort of innovative use of filtering joining session data with CMS data, modeling it so that we can filter things like booking flow in a BI tool. Third example, this is a Sitecore XM Cloud example. In the work that we do, we worked with Sitecore. We're a supplier of Sitecore. They use our solution. We gave a presentation about it a couple of years ago in Symposium. I know we've been named now and again. And what we do with Sitecore XM Cloud is we read the we're reading out CMS data. We're using tracking information from CDP, so the behavioral tracker on CDP. We're stitching them together, and we're able to look at insights. Like, for example, here we have page view. There's page view taxonomy, page views by the taxonomy interest. So in Sitecore.com, there is for each page there's a taxonomy that lets the CMS user place certain tags on certain pages. Here is the XM Cloud page. You can see that there are different taxonomy tags on that are placed in CMS. So there's a taxonomy for audience, a couple taxonomies for audience. There's one for product. There's one for interest. So as users are browsing the pages, they're also triggering these taxonomy tags server side. And then we're able to, what we do is we're reading that data out and we're joining it with the session data. So we can see all types of insights in terms of, page views, conversions, and we also join up Sitecore Search in this. Sitecore Search has this capability called affinity profiling, which is very similar to Sitecore XP profiling. So users, as they browse through the website, they actually accrue affinity profiling values. So we can look at things like the taxonomy tags by affinity profiling. So this is a really great feature that's in Sitecore XM Cloud and previous versions, the taxonomy feature. And I would encourage everyone to use this and look into it, because it's a huge time saver compared to traditional tagging that often takes place in a tool like Google Analytics, where it is very time consuming, not only to set up, but also to maintain in time and cost. So those are 3 examples of CMS aware analytics. How does this work from a technology point of view? I'm not going to go into the details, but basically reading data from different sources, such as session data. In the work that we do, we've developed a website tracker and made it open source. It's called Tail.js. We have an extended version of that for different Sitecore CMS products and other CMSs. And then we read the data from the tracker, we read data from CMS, we join those data sources, and then we can also read in other data sources, which could be CDP, personalized, it could be things like paid, a CRM, commerce data, any API. We've also done an integration with Screaming Frog, for those of you who are into SEO. And and join the data and in an automated way generate the data model, generate the Power BI report, so that it's an end-to-end type of solution. If anyone is interested in learning more, on our website, we have a live demo site that you can you can have a sort of run through the live demo site, and has an embedded dashboard, and you can see how it all works. So that's a little bit super high level from a technology point of view. Finally, since this is a kind of a Sitecore strategy session here, I have some strategic tips. Why use this CMS integrated or CMS aware insights, or sort of unified data, some BI analytics. What we see is that it's a one aspect is data privacy, data security. So in the concept, when you're working with this, extracting this data, you can choose to have a high degree of control over where the data resides, how the data is processed. That's one thing. There's also cutting the cost of basically going from creating components, creating pages, publishing, and then getting insights. So skipping the need to do custom tagging and doing configuration in traditional analytics. With this approach, you're getting, let's say the way the pages are rendered, getting the component names, etc. It's baked in, and you can even extend it in CMS, so you have custom names for components, and you can decide which ones you want to track impressions on. All of this is, adds up to better insights, more context, and a better return on investment on analytics and activating the data. Finally, one thing I just want to mention is that we do have an extension of this using ChatGPT to do things, not using ChatGPT, but using large LLMs and GTP, so that you can join this data. You can basically you work with this data in a large language model for things like predictive analytics and understanding a lot more about the context of the pages with regard to the communication and the insights that are generated. So that's it. There's a couple minutes left. I am going to stop here, and I don't know if there's any questions for anyone, but otherwise, I get us to the end of the day here with at least 2 minutes to spare.
Awesome. Great job to all of our speakers. Just so everyone knows, in case you didn't see the chat, I did enable all camera and speaking capabilities for all the attendees. If you have any questions, or if you have anything you want to add, you want to share kind of what your thoughts are, we do have a couple minutes for you to do that. So I will pause to see if there's anything anybody would like to say.
If no one does, I have something.
Yeah, go for it.
So, Megan, like extremely relevant topic, zero click, search, and the impact of GTP on, inbound and so forth. In the work that we do, we work kind of with like the raw session data, you could say. So one of the things I've been doing lately is looking at, sessions by refer. And one of the customers we work with, I made a chart the other day looking at, sessions by month by refer when I'm filtering on GTP, GPT, I said it right now. And also perplexity. Perplexity is quite, that's my favorite. We all have our personals. And you can just see the upward trend, from like, Q3 last year. So it's not, it's a fraction of the overall, inbound, referral, like you said, but it's growing. It's really growing, and it's definitely something to that everyone needs to keep an eye on. The other thing I wanted to mention is that in Europe, where I'm located, I'm from the US, I live in Europe. Things like AI overview and Google search is not enabled. So we're not able to, we don't see that here. So it is interesting to, there are some sort of regional implications of how AI is used and so forth. But certainly AI is used a lot, and GP like Perplexity and ChatGPT, I think we're all using them every day, at least once an hour. So, but anyway, but great stuff. That was my comment. I don't see any questions popping in. So
I don't see any questions there, but I also like, Megan, how you said AI is great for kind of like in essentially the brainstorming capacity, but your content should still be written by you. 100% behind that. AI
Yep.
has been great for the brainstorming. I like to think of it as it's like a replacement for the thesaurus. So you can go through and find a different way to word things or describe things quicker than you going and looking for different types of words that have the same meaning essentially, or can be replaced by other words to stop using so many buzzwords.
Yep.
All right.
And I know that my deck didn't have a whole lot of actual information. If anyone wants a copy of it, shoot me an email and I'll send you a PDF. Chris and Peter, I would love a copy of your deck if you are willing to share it, because there's really good stuff in there.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely going to ask you for that. So definitely plan to do that. So yeah, great.
Yeah, Peter, I also really liked that last slide. I told you that already, but I really liked that because it's something I think a lot of content customers can relate to. And obviously you being in consulting have probably heard that quite a bit. And I think that maturity and how you get there is key. So great presentation of that. Thank you, everyone. Great presentations.
Thanks so much.
Awesome.
Thanks
everyone.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Krista. Thanks for hosting.
Thank